Rockwell. To some, this name means a lot. To some, it means nothing. From 1910 to 1940, Rockwell was the name of vaudeville's greatest performer, George Lovejoy Rockwell. Lovejoy was a rather interesting character. By chance, he wound up being known for somehow fitting bananas into most of his on-stage performances. Despite standing at a modest 5 feet 4 inches, he had a commanding, if not domineering, personality which drew audiences. By 1915, he had found love, a toe dancer, Miss Claire Shad. They settled in Illinois in 1918 and together had 3 kids, George Lincoln, Robert, and Priscilla. She had given up her career in order to have his kids, and yet Lovejoy gave no love nor joy to his wife and rarely to his children. He put his career above all other interests, described by many of those around him as an egomaniac, someone who thought only his life mattered. By 1921, in his shoes, it sure felt that way. He was perhaps the most well-known stage performer in the United States, and the highest paid. By 1924, he and his wife divorced. Lovejoy often would skip on paying child support, but his wrongdoings as a father never dampened his fame. By 1930, he had created Dr. Rockwell's Mustard Plaster, a comedic magazine, the precursor to Mad magazine, which you all likely know. But what does this all matter? An egotistical theater performer, a delinquent father? Well, pay attention to his children. George Lincoln Rockwell. Lincoln grew up with a delinquent father, one who routinely criticized him, heckled him. Lincoln would try to please him, and as he grew older, he soared to be a full foot taller than his father, a spot of much bother for Lovejoy, who was conscious of his height. His father retired in the 1940s, but Lincoln was just really stepping into his own, going to university to be a student of philosophy, until Pearl Harbor. He signed up for a long career in the Navy in 1941, meeting a woman and getting married in 1943 while serving. His father, Lovejoy, missed his wedding by 2 whole days. Rockwell served for 19 years until receiving an honorable discharge in 1960. He was in the Pacific, Atlantic, and Korean theaters. No one could call him a coward. No one could criticize him for that. He became an officer. He had pride. Finally. Who's to say why, when, or how? Maybe in search of pride, he found some interesting positions. Lincoln claims he picked up some of it in his childhood from disdain for his father's Jewish guests. He may have been a veteran of World War II, but he became a Nazi in 1959, founding the American Nazi Party. His father, Lovejoy, was devastated by this, and his reputation was tarnished. His brother's businesses suffered for bearing the Rockwell name, as Lincoln, who spent the first few years of the 60s doing high-profile media stunts, was brought before the Un-American Activities Committee, and yet continued to act. Lovejoy tried many times to convince him to cease in his beliefs, and yet Lincoln just kept going, renaming the party to the National Socialist White People's Party, and beginning to formalize a doctrine. He coined the term white power. He created what he saw as a pan-white supremacist front. He criticized Martin Luther King as a Bolshevik plant, and he attended Nation of Islam events, praising figures like Malcolm X, who praised him back. It was in 1966 when he took in a one John Patler, an ethnic Greek, who managed their paper, The Stormtrooper, as an editor. Rockwell liked him, but fellow member Matt Cole, an ethnic German, did not. Cole, along with other Germanics in Rockwell's party, formed an internal faction, the Aryan Unity faction, whilst Rockwell led the White Power faction. His plan was to reform the party to be about broader white nationalism, following more in line with someone like Francis Parker Yockey or even Julius Evola, or the pan-European identitarians of today under Camus. There's a lot of speculation on exactly how he died in 1967. shot, ironically, by a German Mauser pistol. Some say Patler did it. I mean, it is alleged that Rockwell fucked his wife and that Patler sent him a letter saying he was okay with that, but a falling out with Cole the days prior seemed to suggest a plot. The court wasn't convinced. Patler was found with the pistol, missing 2 rounds, the 2 that killed Rockwell. And with it, Patler was convicted, and Lincoln's reign was cut short. His father Lovejoy surviving him, simply saying he was more afraid of his own men than his enemies. I'm not surprised. And so it was from this point that many Nazi movements in the U.S. found their 2 main factions: the legacy of Hitler, of Germanic supremacy, or the legacy of Rockwell, of white supremacy. The NSWPP wouldn't make it much further. Matt Cole would take over the leadership. It rebranded to The New Order in 1983, and despite his Nordic preference, he was inspired by the Greek-French writer Savitri Devi Mukherjee, who is a very interesting character all to herself, proposing a fusion of Hinduism and Nazism, venerating Hitler as an incarnation of Vishnu. Needless to say, Cole lost the plot. The party lost its popularity among the far right, and Adam Waffen leader James Mason, former member under Rockwell, broke with the group during this time. In the fallout of Rockwell's death, many parties rose. One was the National Socialist movement. They split directly out of the NSWPP under the direction of founders Robert Brannan and Cliff Harrington. Despite being founded in 1974, it gained prominence at first in 1993 when Harrington and another member wore Nazi uniforms to a Minnesota Legislative Committee hearing protesting gay rights. In 1994, Jeff Shope took power, who will be a name we mention somewhat routinely, so pay attention. Harrington remained their co-chair until 2006. He was somewhat forced to resign his position after it was discovered that his wife, Andrea, was high priestess of a theistic satanic church, the Joy of Satan Ministries, or now known as the Temple of Zeus. That first name was a little on the nose, huh? How is it that Nazis and Satanists go so hand in hand? Anyhow, this revelation led to many of the Christian Identity members to leave in anger, which exposed a religious divide within the NSM. There were Odinists, basically just Germanic pagans, Christians held over from Rockwell's attempts to co-opt the Christian Identity movement, and Satanists that I can't fucking fathom where they came from. Despite these religious divisions and several leaders being accused of sex crimes, by 2009, the group had 61 chapters in 35 states, the largest single neo-Nazi group in the United States. In 2011, a California branch leader, Jeff Hall, was killed by his 10-year-old son because, as he says, he was tired of being beaten, and a year later, the Nevada leader, Josh Davenport, kidnapped and did terrible fucking things to a 13-year-old. Why are the leaders of this group so predisposed to sexual violence? God damn it, man. In 2017, the infamous Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville culminated in the death of a counter-protester, 2 lawsuits, and the Nationalist Front collapsing in on itself. Somehow, by 2019, Jeff Shope found himself replaced as the leader of the NSM by James Hart Stern. Now, if I have a photo of him, you'll see the glaring oddity with that. Stern is a black man. Backstory: Reverend James Hart Stern is a Baptist minister. Sadly, he passed of cancer in late 2019, but he has a really interesting history as a pastor. On the mean streets of Los Angeles, he worked to solve gang violence wherever he could, organizing a meeting between, I shit you not, the Roof Koreans and 85 gang members, brokering a truce between gangs and Korean grocers following the Rodney King riots. In 2007, he was arrested for wire fraud, and during this time, he became roomies with Edgar Ray Killen while in prison. Edgar Ray Killen, in his past, killed a civil rights worker. He was leader of a KKK branch, and despite being in prison for killing a black rights activist, Stern managed to befriend him and eventually convinced him to hand over power of attorney and all of his land in Mississippi, which allowed him to formally disband the KKK in 2016. In 2017, he wrote a book about it called Killin' the KKK, which you can probably still purchase. Jeff Shope, the former NSM chairman, handed control of the group to Stern under similar circumstances. Beset by legal troubles and long in correspondence, Stern was able to get Shope to hand him the NSM on a silver platter, though he died of cancer just shy of 8 months into his legal rule over the NSM. It shortly reconstituted, this time under Bert Colucci. Jeff Shope was disgraced by falling for an offer for legal help from a black man for his Nazi group. This is literally like a Nigerian prince walking into Berlin, shaking hands with Hitler, and becoming the ruler of Germany. And it happened twice. Into what the fuck kind of wizardry is this? So I'm thinking, like, unironically, this is post-editing auto. I think it was literally the power of friendship. Like, I'm not even fucking with you. Reverend Stern, you beautiful bastard.
If you dissolve that group, somebody else is going to pick it up and you're going to still look like you're the leader of it. It's going to just still carry on. He says, you know, you're right. I says, I have an idea. Give it to me. He said, huh? I said, if you give it to me, I'm going to shelf it. I'm going to make sure it's never used again. I'm sure not going to run the organization.
Despite his death, the group was greatly diminished. His goal was to destroy it. Colucci worked to revive it, with Jeff Shope now having resigned. Colucci and 9 others somehow made international news, putting the org back on the map after pretending to urinate on an Israeli flag during a pride parade in 2019. Now, I know what you're going to ask. How is Bert Colucci going to take this tiny little organization of skinheads and make it a national contender in the definitely impending American Civil War? I'm going to give you folks the God honest truth. I've got no fucking idea. I don't know. I can't think of a real way this comes back from the dead in 2 years' time, but I'm going to try. Bear with me. The Aryan Brotherhood, who's heard of it? No? Not you? I have to tell you everything, don't I? Jesus, guy. When I ask a question, you never fucking respond. It's a prison gang, and this is how the National Socialist movement will make its comeback. While rallying...
We don't want to be around people of color. We don't fucking want it. We don't want you around us. We don't want
friends.
We don't want
Nigerians. The NSM has been preparing its new recruitment strategy, prisons. Prisoners or former prisoners make up a rather large piece of the NSM puzzle. Bert Colucci can simply never contend with the sophistication that the Patriot Front brings to the table as a right-wing political movement, but it remains radical, violent, and open to criminals. So he sends members to commit minor infractions and go to jail and prison, where they recruit as many as they can. Colucci recruits too on the outside. To his pleasant surprise, the United States in 2020 is absolutely boiling. The conditions for a reactionary revolt are prime. President Trump is unable to properly respond to the COVID-19 virus. A deadlocked Senate, unprepared FEMA and CDC apparatuses, and mass protests around the nation in response to the death of a black man in Richmond completely blindsided and paralyzed the embattled administration, who at the same time is having to contend with soaring oil prices and impeachment proceedings. The nation is in an uproar. Black nationalism grows, as does anti-immigrant fervor. Employment soars past 20%, and with the high cost of gas, many cannot make it to their jobs without tightening their belts. Many millions of white Americans feel as though the nation is being invaded, as if they are under threat by surging racial tensions. In Michigan, the National Socialist movement answers the call of der Aryan Volk. The election is contested. It is close. But Trump secures a victory, and despite that, Democrats and the GOP break with him and his supporters. The Trump admin is exiled to Denver, military renegades flee west, and independent militias begin operating across the vast expanse of America. The Democrats are paralyzed, unable to properly respond. The Army divides itself between D.C. and Denver as regional groups and militias quickly find themselves racing to get armed and control their regions. The NSM, with their HQ in Detroit, is forced to flee the city by black gangs and the motorcycle gangs in the city. They take to the countryside, seizing National Guard armories and rapidly mobilizing scared whites to their cause. The Huttery, expanded greatly under Brian Stone, seizes control of the North. They threaten to split the movement. Taking them out is necessary. Their men can be integrated and their explosives experts useful. Our greatest enemy truly is the state government. Once we consolidate Michigan, we can truly begin to form a little Aryan paradise in the chaos that America has become. It wasn't what Colucci envisioned, but maybe in this time of crisis he can finally lose some weight. Jeff Shope's return was unlikely, but surprisingly welcomed by many. Colucci was uncertain about him. Being the leader of the Orthodox Hitlerite faction, Shope proved to be an opponent, a Rockwellian, a reformer. Ultimately, Colucci would not relent, even if his surname was Italian, even if he himself were far from an Aryan specimen. He would direct the NSM to fight for the Aryan race and fight to cleanse America of its minorities. Shope would remain as a commander, an influential but sidelined figure, forever tarnished by his trust in a black pastor. Colucci easily was able to outmaneuver Shope, unifying Michigan under his rule and beginning economic reforms along Hitlerian lines. Ultimately, America under Colucci was destined to become a state following the economic and administration of Nazi Germany nearly to the letter. While of course, Hitler's economics had something to be desired. The theories of Strasser could be utilized, at least to a moderate degree, to make up for its shortcomings. Mass collectivizations concentrated the economy under NSM direct control, but there was opposition to this. Shope had intended to reform the administration, to offer black autonomy. During the time of Rockwell, he had praised the Black Panthers for their wish to achieve segregation, to separate themselves from whites and form their own state, and Shope followed this idea too, to give African Americans and others their own way out. Colucci, on the other hand, had every intention of seizing their wealth, assets, and cutting them off from the system, leaving them to die naturally or systematically. The task Colucci set out to do would strain even German resources, and frankly, it did strain German resources. The task ahead of him would dwarf the Holocaust by several times over. A number of people greater than the entire death toll of World War II would be killed or expelled from America. But he first had to gain control of it. The Patriot Front consolidated New England. Their sophistication in propaganda and diplomacy made the NSM look like fools in comparison. Their members were organized, numerous, and their leader was a good speaker and well-dressed. Colucci, by comparison, was a lump in a khaki suit. Yet they resembled two sides of a single white supremacist coin, one that is violent and one that is calculated and more polite. A prison Nazi versus a suburban fascist. Yet they were allies of opportunity. Both the NSM and Patriot Front had considerably increased their fighting ability, and the Democrats in D.C. were being bogged down west of St. Louis. A few more months of preparation and maybe what? Right now? No, we're not ready. What? No, stop, no! Biden's forces had the aerial, material, and industrial advantage over all of its opponents combined. This was a problem. Modernization of the NSM's forces had yet to be completed. Motorization of the army was just barely completed, and the NSM had few stockpiles with which to supplement their forces. The army was obtaining more tactical, yet still German-themed olive-drab uniforms to replace the starkly contrasting black ones, and we were trading our shields for proper firearms and armor. The Patriot Front zealousy could cost the Aryan race ultimate victory, but we must hold. We must hold. We must hold. We need to hold. Stop, don't. Third time's the charm? Yeah. Yeah. It was necessary to expand the armed forces. Domestic unrest in Michigan was spiking. Minorities, liberals, they despised us, and rightfully so. We would have them killed. For now, our modernization had to be delayed. Men with guns on the ground were needed now. Units following the organization of the National Guard of old were deployed, supplementing our forces. The entry of Atomwaffen considerably aided in our efforts, with the Masonites drawing away hundreds of thousands of federal forces to swarm over the South. We began to push, and fast, into Illinois, into Ohio. The brutality of our prisoners-turned soldiers pulled us from the brink of collapse, and we linked up with PF forces. Biden's administration collapsed in on itself. The National Front stood together, poised to take the fight west into Trump's lands. Trump represents the Republican old guard, businessmen, liberals, Judeo-globalist fools, spending billions of American dollars on overseas ventures that help no one of worth here at home. The destruction of the Denver government will put the final nail in the coffin of the old America and open the door for our new one. Our forces had proven to be among the most effective, utilizing seized tanks, produced models of armor and motorized, and efficient tactics. The brutality and speed of our army was unmatched, and on the Midwestern plain, speed was everything. With the fall of Trump's government, the American People's Liberation Army stood our sole opponent for the domination of America. The Patriot Front was in awe of our forces, and the Atomwaffen Division had to accept a junior role in the National Socialist struggle. We were destined to win the National Conference. We only needed to finish off the last enemy our front has left. The Red Menace, the Rot. At last, victory! Our forces tore west with the righteous ferocity only the warriors of Odin could possess. True Aryan warriors of Colucci won this war, and the National Conference vindicated this, the delegates electing us as the leader for our new America. The National Republic is born. We are reborn. But we are not alone. Let alone the fact that over 100 million people in this nation are black, Hispanic, or angry. The Mexican Republic of Claudia Sheinbaum has unified her government after the cartel uprising, adopting militarism to keep order and to defend their new, dangerous border with a Nazi America. Canada, too, under Trudeau, is horrified. A national emergency had been declared and a perpetual conscription put into place. The economy of Canada, made up of many escaped companies and industries from America, and now supported by American refugees, loyal Canadian citizens at this point, was booked for war. For every 2 Canadians in their army, 1 American had volunteered. Trudeau made efforts to integrate the United States Navy, which still stood in Alaska, and accepting for the cause of liberty, the USN attached its territories and forces to Canada, all now fiercely loyal to Toronto. Mexico was burning, not just literally, but metaphysically. The Hispanic nation saw over 40 million of its people across the border would be butchered if they did nothing. And Canada knew there was no chance a Nazi America would allow a liberal Canada to stand. Colucci did indeed have plans to take Canada to purify it as well. The purification had already begun in the U.S. During the war in its controlled territories, it began small extrajudicial killings, but it has expanded and Now, the world is truly seeing it for the first time. Footage of riots, of lynchings, terror nationwide surface. The American National Army is spread to a breaking point, unable to contain the entire nation's anger. Conquering this nation has proven to be a mistake. The shocking internal instability and atrocities committed by the government of Colucci lead Canada and Mexico to form the Iron Front. What internationally has been dubbed the White Terror goes from street to street, in white hoods, with swastikas, in balaclavas, in ski masks, killing, carving, breaking, burning. Millions will die from lack of food and water access, left to rot on the streets by a government unwilling to care for the needs of its massive minority population, killing the resistors, the sick, killing just to kill. If nothing happens, Colucci will find himself unable to bury the dead. Canada and Mexico have an obligation. They know it. In their hearts, in their minds, they have an obligation to bring an end to this. Colucci's forces are spread across the great expanse of America, thin, under-equipped, hemorrhaging manpower. The nation refuses to cooperate. It will not lay down. It has gone far enough. Canadian and Mexican forces rapidly assemble and enter the new American Republic in 2027. Hastily mobilized units at half strength move to meet them, but even with an industrial advantage, Colucci's new America cannot defend its entire border. Insieg is upon us. The last attempt by the liberals has come to our gates. We stand as the sole protectors of the Aryan vote.
Canadians are not angry at the American people for this. We don't have anything against Americans. Americans are our neighbors, our friends, our partners. We do things together. We've done things together for decades and generations. This is a policy decision by the American government.
A sus familias. No son criminales, son hombres y mujeres de bien, honestos.
Colucci rallies the nation. This is our greatest struggle, and we have few options. Destroying the weaker opponent and then refocusing our efforts is the only choice we have. Mexico must fall, and then Canada, but we race against the clock. Our forces in the Midwest are not enough to hold the line. We have to be fast. Our iron will must prevail over their superior firepower. We're making solid progress, even entering Canada, seizing its great urban centers. But their armies do not let up. Mexico is faltering, but its fall gives us 120 million souls to police. We are on the brink of total collapse.
Para Alfa, observación, dirección. November, whisky, tierra, eco. Continúo. Para Lima, caseta, Pérez. Continúo. Uniform, desconocido. Continúo. Para morteros, al parecer 120 mineros. Continúo.
Our forces have decimated the Iron Front. With Mexico defeated, our forces can reconsolidate and storm west. We will reclaim America. We will fight on to ultimate victory.
10 granadas de mortero. Continúo. Para eco, mortero de 120 mineros. Interno recibido. Aquí Centurión recibido. Esquizo, aquí Centurión. Aquí Esquizo, al cambio. Aquí Centurión, prepárese para recibir salute de Kingis. De Esquizo, Oscar, recibido, proceda. Aquí Centurión, salgo con número 0, 1, 1, 6, 4, 8, 3, Uniform, November, 2, 1. Continúo.
Despite our will, despite our victories, the front has stalled. Vancouver has valiantly defended the American West Coast. California, they're helping. They're cooperating with Canada. We are betrayed. On all corners, we are betrayed from everywhere. Our stockpiles are empty. We are out of men. All our men are rioting, breaking factories. The situation is hopeless. No, but we decimated them. We won. We won. This can't be. Damn you. Damn you. This isn't the end. This is the end of America. The National Socialist movement was one of many right-wing organizations. Many operated with impunity within the new America ever since the war began. The police could not be supported by the army anymore. The last year up to now 2029, the NSM was little more than a roving band fighting the invading armies while their domestic situation hit a point arguably worse than when the Civil War first began. Black nationalists rose in the South with wider support, while Confederate sympathetics again took up the cause of Southern revolt. All while the Atomwaffen Division gripped Florida again, a specter of the First War reborn. The USN broke away from Canadian command as the Canadian Army too began to disintegrate, grabbing a slice of the Pacific coast while California, previously communist, hosting federal sympathizers. In the West, the light of liberty again shines. In the Midwest, agrarian communists revolted, white anti-fascists salted the earth men and women of the rural People's Army. Farmers whose grandfathers killed Nazis and will kill more for their freedom. In the Northeast, the American Iron Front, a friendly force to Quebec built with the sole purpose of crushing the attempted rebirth of the Patriot Front in New England. The Huttery, integrated, broke away again, like so many others. Texas broke free, and yet their greatest enemy again was Mexico. But not just any Mexico. The Brown Berets became a true Hispanic nationalist organization. Under the heavy pressure of the genocidal authority in D.C., the Brown Berets expanded their movement and their cells deep into Mexico. Scheinbaum's government returns in the south around Mexico City, contending with a renewed Sinaloa cartel and the Brown Berets. America died, was born again, and has died again. Someday it may return, but it will be a long and painful process before that happens. The remnants of Colucci's government lie in Chicago, a city they cleansed early in the war. At any moment, the remnants of the Canadian Army are poised to wipe them off the face of the earth, if the Cincinnati government doesn't do it first. Even as we are again shattered, the fate of Europe and Asia remains undecided, and we will play no part in it. Our day is done. Goodbye, America, sweet prince. You had a good run, but it's time to say goodbye.